What's up, everybody? Man, I hate it when everybody says what's up. Are you going to respond to me out there in the audience? I don't think so. Anyways, maybe season's greetings. That's it. Season greetings to all of you out there. Because today we're in the shop. We're going to be molding this nice, fine black walnut. Ooh, black walnut. I love black walnut. Into some Christmas gifts. These are going to be bandsaw boxes. Stay tuned. So because this is going to be a bandsaw box and we're going to be cutting away most of this edge here, the biggest concern really is just getting the two faces parallel to each other. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to true up one face on the jointer here before we go ahead and feed it through the planer to our final thickness. Alrighty, next step in the process, now that we've got one side smooth and flat, we're going to run it through the planer here to make sure that both sides end up coplanar. So because I want to maintain the maximum amount of thickness I can out of each of these boards, one pass has done a good job on the planer. All right, here we go. My favorite part, the glue up. So we've got the two pieces of walnut, which are going to form the outer shells for the bandsaw boxes. And what I'm using this time is, I've had some pine kicking around that I've already milled up and it's all ready to go. So this is going to be the inner sections for a bandsaw box. So I've got my clamps, I've got my spreader, I've got my glue, I've got my backer boards. Yep, I learned that lesson from the last video. And I got some liquid courage for the glue up. Here we go with the glue. So lots of glue. And these are going to go as Christmas gifts to my daughter-in-law and my granddaughter. They're going to be very similar in style, so that they have mother and daughter matching bandsaw jewelry boxes. Isn't that sweet? Hopefully that will show up in the finished product as a happy smiley face. Uh-oh. The glue can's erupted. Damn it. Lid wasn't on. Time for liquid courage. Find in some backer boards. Quick clamps. Little wooden box clamps. Oh, that wasn't so terrible. Time for more liquid courage. So we've got our hunk of wood here, our black walnut and our pine all laminated up, fresh out of the glue box. We're going to run it through the jointer here to get one of the edges trued up to one of the faces. Back at the table saw now, so what we're going to do now that we have one edge squared up to the two true faces, we're going to do a final cut to get it to a final dimension on the table saw. So the blade is set to match just over the width of the material that we have here, so we have to do this two cuts and minimizing the amount of blade exposed. And maximizing the fence setting so that we can get the most amount of material we can save for creating our jewelry boxes. Okay, we're over here at the miter saw now. It's now going to become two separate identities. Hopefully I keep all my fingers.
Just kidding. I approach every cut with the utmost of safety. I have all my fingers.
Managed to keep all my fingers, and man, did this grain ever turn out really nice. Look at that smiley face in there. So let me describe my design process. I use an artistic approach. I look at what the block of wood has, and I'll use various straight edges, measuring center lines, and get aesthetically pleasing. But for me, it comes in the art form. Sometimes I just use the physical measurements and work with that. I just look at what I've got. I'll set up calipers and I'll set up drawings and whatnot and just react to what is actually in the wood and what I see in the wood. So in this particular circumstance, I want to have a very large drawer on the bottom so that my granddaughter can have a drawer for crayons or hair clips or larger such items. And then I wanted 2 other drawers, but I wanted this piece to be symmetrical. A lot of my other pieces are far from symmetrical. They're very asymmetrical. Yep, I'm a genius. I discovered asymmetry in woodwork. So I took a slightly different approach with this particular box. I saw something different in it, and slightly different design for a different purpose. So this long, tall drawer is going to be for hanging necklaces. All the other 4 drawers on the side are going to be putting things like rings and earrings and all the rest of that kind of stuff in. And this just all came out of the box. For a bandsaw box, just kind of following a couple simple guidelines. I don't like to have straight edges. I like to have curves everywhere. That way it's easier to cut. So the next step of the operation is to cut out the basic outline of it. Cut off all the edges and the corners. We got both boxes to their basic outside shape now. The next step we have to do is we have to take a slab off the back. Sorry, but I gotta do it. This baby's got back. Next phase of the operation, now that we've got the back cut off, we need to very intricately cut out the drawer sections. Now you gotta think ahead on this one. I designed it so that all of these have natural curves so that I can negotiate the bandsaw through the natural curves around each of the drawers. The other thing you got to think of is your entry and your exit points and the whole process to cut out these drawers in a single movement. The other thing you want to consider is the entry points, because you can't just start in the middle of the box. You have to come in from an edge. So the optimal, because we have to glue that edge back together, the optimal place is to try and do it in line with the grain. That way it clamps together better and the clamp line or the cut line is a little more invisible. So with this in mind, I've made a decision to cut along the bottom, go along the whole entire length, do the curve, do the second curve, and stop there. That way that drawer will be complete. I can then shut the saw off, back the blade out, and do the same here, except on this one, I'm going to have a cut line here and I'm going to have a cut line here because there's 2 drawers. So I'm going to go the whole length, do the cut, back the saw out, and do the cut for the second drawer. Okay, so there you have it. 2 boxes all cut out. Drawers are all cut out with a carcass or a shell with hopefully some very fine lines that we can glue back up, and it'll look just like the grain once we glue it up. We got the drawers and the baby's got back. Okay, next phase of the operation is to glue these carcasses back together. So you can see in this particular one, I've got a cut line, cut line, cut line, cut line, and a cut line. So it's kind of hard to get the glue down in there. So what I do is I kind of drizzle the glue on top, use the handy dandy knife to kind of get the glue squashed in there, and clamp them up. Here we go. Glue. Again, my favorite thing to do. Nope, I didn't steal this knife from the kitchen. Okay, yes I did. Really important to clean up as much glue as you can. Can you imagine trying to get the glue out of there? So we try and clean it up. Okay, so there's jewelry box number 1, all glued up. Okay, the next step in the operation is to take about a 1/2 inch cut off of both the front and back of the drawers. So we're down to the most difficult part of the task, and that's hollowing out the drawers here. I've already broken my 3/16 blade, trying to do a tight cut on this one corner. So we're up to my 3/8 blade. So what it means is that I'm gonna have to make multiple cuts to get the guts out of these drawers. I gotta do some sanding just to clean it up a little bit. Oh well. Man, that oscillating drum sander does a wonderful job. Have a look at that. I don't know what I'd do without one of them. Okay, now for the mother of all glue ups. 28 pieces for 2 jewelry boxes. Let the fun begin. Oh, by the way, it pays to be really organized, because sometimes if you mix all these stuff up, it takes a long time to figure out what piece goes with what. Okay, here goes, the first of many. This is another time it pays to be very organized, because we're gonna make a mess. All right, looks like we got it. Drawer number 1. So these small drawers, they should be easily able to get away with one clamp. Oh, look at that. That looks wonderful. Okay, so another day in the shop. We've got all of our drawers are all assembled and glued together. They're all looking good. They still need a sanding. Next step in the operation is we've got our carcasses, the boxes themselves here. They're still separated. So we need to get them all glued up. Okay, here we go. Gluing up the back sides to the main carcass that we cut apart earlier. So I've cleaned up all the surfaces with an old chisel, and I've made sure that we've got a good even fit all the way along, so that when we glue it back together, it'll hopefully look like we never took it apart. Okay, we'll have a look at this. All right, for the next fun thing to do. You thought gluing was bad? Now we've got to sand, and then sand, and sand some more. And that's the only bad part about making these bandsaw boxes, is that the word sand is pretty predominant. Next step in the process, we're going to take all of the drawers and we're just going to put a very small 1/8 little round over on the all the front edges or the face edges of the drawers. we're going to continue on with sanding the drawers. Now what I do it in a couple step processes. Anywhere that is not the front, it's the sides and the back, they get sanded to 120. And the insides, because they're going to be flocked, I don't sand them at all. The front itself, because it's going to be the highlight of the piece, and it has to be really done really well, I'll sand them to a 240 grit before. Excuse me. Switch her into Rotex. And just that easy, we're back to fine sanding. That's all there is to it. One drawer down, 8 more to go. I told you it was a lot of sanding. It's always best to try and pick your shapes so that a sander can get down in there. And there's no way a sander's going to get down in there. That's hand sanding. That's all on Dan. Oh, I was wrong about that. It was Rotex to the rescue. I threw on some 50 grit, actually 80 grit, and it ripped the snot out of that wood. And it's really slick. And look at that. There's the lips I was telling you about. Did I tell you? There's a lot of sanding. Don't say I didn't warn you. There's a lot of sanding. I am tired of sanding, and now for some fun. Because I never get the opportunity, because every man should have time to turn on his lathe, I'm actually going to fashion all of my little knobs. All of the drawer pulls on the boxes. I like to turn them myself. So I cut a strip of hardwood here, so the same black walnut that we're using for the boxes themselves, I'll cut and turn my own drawer pulls. Okay, that's sounding pretty good. So when I turn my knobs, I was mentioning earlier about asymmetry. I don't like to use things like calipers and stuff like that. I like it when there's a little bit of dissimilarity. So that's why I do it just by eye. It gives it more of an artistic intent. Anybody can have something that comes out of a factory, but nobody has a creation that is completely asymmetric like this. Yep, here we are. Sanding again. Wonderful. Perfectly asymmetric. Chunk of square wood into a bunch of round pieces. These are all going to be the individual knobs for the individual drawers. Just need to cut them up on the bandsaw, do some final sanding, glue them on, and Bob's your uncle. And there you have it, a bunch of knobs. Aren't they a bunch of very nice knobs? They sometimes talk to each other. You're a knobhead. No, you're a knob. Wait a minute, I'm King Knob. Honestly, Mom, I'm just sanding my knob, all 8 of them, vigorously. I'm going to use shellac on here again because I like shellac. Dries durable, dries fast, and you can do multiple coats, one right after the other. You have to do the insides as a sealer base for the flocking. Okay, so on the faces of all the material, we're going to use a French polishing technique. So I'll either thin down the shellac, see how it goes on, and we just basically buff it on with a little buffer pad. Don't tell my wife I cut up a flannel sheet, okay? 8 drawers and 2 carcasses later. It might take a while. So I've got all the inside of the boxes all shellacked up, but the faces are still raw. So the next step in my procedure is, what I've done is I've taken some methyl hydrate and I've thinned down the Zeiss Zinsser's shellac, and you just buff it. Oops. And that's all you do is buff it, and it puts on a really nice finish. So in about 3 minutes that'll be dry and you can put another coat on. Back to polishing. It allows you really to get in there and concentrate on polishing the knob. Honest, Mom, I'm just polishing my knob. Now we're gonna do some flocking. Flocking. Not get your mind out of the gutter. So the manufacturer says to put copious amounts of glue on the inside of the drawers, but I find that if you put copious amounts, it tends to run into the corners. It's all flocked up when you're done. Let go. Let go, doggy. Oh. Oh. Puppies. That's my ankle, you twit. You can like kind of swear without actually swearing. Flock you. Just with little gradual shots, you can work it down in there, and then you just have a good look at it and make sure that it gets everywhere. Oh, there we go. That's a flocked up drawer. 7 more to go. And there you have it, a bunch of flocked up drawers. For the final finishing touch, and these little dowels, we'll put them in place to hold the necklaces. And there we have it. 2 more fine bandsaw jewelry boxes from Therapy Woodworks. Merry Christmas, Maria and Quinn. Hey, look at me! I could put away my bandsaw blade. That's pretty cool. It took me 7 tries to get this, jackass. It ripped through that like a handsaw through a turd. It ripped through that like a boat through water. It ripped through that like a telephone book by the strong man at the carnival. That sucks.